Stand by to fold in, Polk County. This is today's veteran. Hello and welcome, and on behalf of everyone at Polk County Veteran Services, thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Brian Lacey, and I'm sitting in for Tim Kirkhart. And on this installment of Today's Veteran, we'll take a look at a local company that creates a standard in aviation services capabilities for all branches of the United States military and Department of Defense. Joining us is Lieutenant Colonel Jerry D. Kirby. He's the Vice President of Operations for Drokken International. Jive, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate you being here.
Always a pleasure, and thanks for being such a gracious host to us. This is an incredible facility.
Anytime we can show off Drokken International, we love to do it and introduce everybody to what we're doing for the military and the United States taxpayers.
Let's talk a little bit about that. What exactly is Drokken International, and how did it show up in Polk County, Lakeland Airport?
Drokken International is a contracted air services company. We provide mainly adversary aircraft to the United States Department of Defense, primarily the Air Force, some Navy, but a big part of the Marine contract right now. And we are the aggressors. We play the bad guys against everything that those different services can throw at us. And we exercise their training, basically. We're there to punish mistakes for any kind of error that's made on the battlefield in the air. And if they punish, we punish anything that they screw up, basically.
As the old saying goes, perfect practice makes perfect. And with the gentlemen that you have flying and the gentlemen that you have servicing the aircraft, they're all, for the most part, former military?
They are. We have a lot of veterans that work for Drokken International. We have very high standards in the people that we have on board our company because we provide a very high standard of service. And the primary makeup of our company, comes from the veterans in the form of the mechanics as well as the pilots, because they've been there, done that. They know the military culture. They're working on primarily military aircraft, and the training they've received throughout their military career has been absolutely top-notch. And so that carries over into what they do for Drokken, and then what we ultimately give back in the form of the military training.
One thing that the military and government teaches everybody: better, cheaper, faster. And you guys providing this service, the business model. Let's talk a little bit about that. If the Air Force were to go Air Force to Air Force, and they're flying pretty much the same planes, it's going to cost the Air Force X amount of dollars. But talk about the business model, what you provide, and where the bang for the buck is.
Well, a modern 4th gen or even a 5th gen fighter is going to be upwards of $50,000 to $70,000 per hour to put that aircraft in the air. If you fight a 4th or 5th gen aircraft against another 4th or 5th gen aircraft, the training value is good, but it's a waste on the military's budget to be able to have to do that. And they're having to do that now because of the drawdown in pilots, the drawdown in airframes that provided that aggressor service for the Air Force and the Navy. The drawdown of those squadrons has created a void there where it's forcing now I would say frontline units to have to go out to Nellis Air Force Base and provide the bad guy on those ranges out there, where we can come in and provide that same service for 1/5 or more of a savings to the cost of what the military is having to pay for that.
One of the things that I'd really like you to elaborate on is the pilots. These aren't, the pilots aren't guys that were in for 6 years and, maybe 8 years and done. Talk about the skill of the pilots that are flying these.
Our pilots are all military trained, obviously, as you've alluded to. Most of them are retirees, are recently retired or have been retired for a few years. And in my case, I've been out since 2006. They're all very experienced aviators. They're all graduates of Top Gun in the Navy or the Air Force Fighter Weapons School for the Air Force. So many thousands of hours of every frontline fighter that the military has, including the F-35, the F-22, the F-15, the F-16, the F-18. We cover the gamut of everything that's out there flying right now. All of those pilots are who are manning the Drokken airplanes to provide the aggressor services for the different
Let's talk a little bit about your service to our country. Obviously retired in 2006. Where did your time in the Air Force take you?
I started in 1983, served 23 years, primarily in the F-15C, and I spent the majority, almost all of my stateside time in Florida. Either at Lakeland.
Where did you know? How did you get that gig?
I have no idea how that worked out. I'm a fighter weapons school graduate in the F-15. I've been a replacement training unit instructor at Tyndall Air Force Base in the F-15, 2 separate tours, 2 operational combat tours at Lakeland Air Force Base, an operational test and evaluation tour at Lakeland Air Force Base, and then ended my career at Tyndall Air Force Base again as a commander of the 82nd Aerial Target Squadron, which provides full-scale and subscale targets for the testing of air-to-air missiles. So it's a much-needed service. Every missile, new missile that gets fielded, must be flown against a full-scale target. In my case, that was the F-4 Phantom. And so I was lucky enough to be able to fly that at the very end of my career and experience a little bit of heritage and history that I was lucky enough to be able to take back out to the public on the air show circuit as a member of the Air Force Heritage Flight.
Now, one of the cool things that people might not realize, not only this service do you provide to the DoD, but you guys have a team of sorts that performs here along with many other air shows. Talk about the team itself.
Well, the team you're referring to was a Black Diamond Jet team, formerly known as a Heavy Metal Jet team, but we did air shows in 2011 and 2012, and it was kind of the genesis of how Drokken started, with the same team of individuals that did that. We're not active on the show circuit right now, but the team is available for flyovers and other kind of services with those jets. And so we keep them up and keep them flying, and just recently in June, some of the folks out there that are reviewing this might have seen us fly at Lakeland Airport on a one-day kind of performance for our own selves.
One thing that those of us Air Force-wise know the origin of Drokken, but if you will, explain to the folks at home what Drokken is. You guys kind of borrowed the name.
We did. We had Jared Isaacman is the CEO of Drokken, and he, along with 5 others, kind of put the company together and started building it. Jared is a warbird advocate. He's had many warbirds in his time, and that's how I got to first know him as a warbird instructor for him back in 2008. One of those aircraft that he purchased was a J-35 Draken built by the Saab company. We sold the airplane very quickly because of an unsupportable system on the aircraft we didn't want to have to deal with. But we like the name. Drokken just has a ring to it. It just kind of flows off your tongue there, and so we like the way that sounded, and we like kind of the image of the name and how it would project for future business.
As a provider to Department of Defense and the United States military, you're obviously looking for the best of the best, not only in pilots, but also in maintenance. Talk about what a draw this company is to bring those that are transitioning from military life into civilian life, and what a venue and what a place to live here in Polk County.
Well, it is. It's been a wonderful experience being here. The support from Polk County, first of all, and the airport. Gene Conrad, the airport director here, and his entire staff has been absolutely phenomenal, providing us what we need. He wanted to make sure we were happy, and he continues to do that. It allows us even more enthusiasm to want to give back to the whole community through that introduction. We have a tremendous talent pool of people that are either former Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps that we're available to draw from in this area. We also have many Air Force and Navy installations around this area that have a reserve or a guard commitment. Some of our folks here on the floor actually still serve as reservists and guardsmen and are able to work that in to their unit and Drokken. So they stay relevant on what they're doing in the reserves and the guard, bring that experience back here, and we're able to benefit from that. And hopefully you'll be able to talk to a few of those guys today.
Yeah. One of the cool things that I've seen, Embry-Riddle, just right down the road, and the kid that's helped us the most today, setting up intern Shane. You've got an intern program too. Talk a little bit about that.
We do. We try to bring in talent just like Shane to come in here, and it's an opportunity not only for them to learn from a leading company that's out there building and growing and providing a unique service, but it's also an opportunity for them to interface with many veterans and that have had different life experiences in this field, and take those into an aeronautical engineer or other degrees that the interns may have, and take that experience out and be a head start on their other contemporaries that may come into a company they're working with.
Well, we have just a little bit of time left, and I think the question that comes to mind, you've got one of the most interesting call signs. Tell me about the story of Jive.
Well, the call sign, the story around a call sign is usually never to be repeated.
I tell you what, we'll share it just amongst us, and if we share it on.
There was, back in a long time ago, there was a movie called Airplane that came out, and it had that language that was in there called jive. And I maybe had a Diet Coke at the bar one day, and I was kind of spouting that, and it instantly stuck that was what we're going to call you. And so I had a few more Diet Cokes, and it kind of sealed the deal. So yeah, it stuck, and I sometimes don't even know my first name anymore, and there are people in this company that probably forgotten my last name because of that. So it's fun. It's a traditional thing in the Air Force, and I'm kind of happy with it. I've got a lot of name tags with it on it, so I guess I better be happy with it.
Got a lot of mileage out of it, don't you?
I do.
Well, Colonel, thank you for having us, and appreciate it, and it's an incredible facility that you have here.
Thanks, Brian. Again, we're very proud to show it off, and thanks for having me today.
And we'll be back with more of today's veteran right after this.
Hello, I'm Sherman Roberts. The Florida Veterans Foundation is holding a Veterans Information Summit along with All Gave Some Incorporated on Friday, August 19th, 2016 from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at Polk State College, the Lakeland campus. This is a very special project. The summit will be a single location that veterans and their families can obtain information that may impact their lives, and for vendors to distribute key information about veterans issues and what Polk County has to offer veterans and their families. Admission is free. For more information, you can give us a call at 863-534-5237 or 863-944-0338, or check us out on the web at allgavesome.org.
On August 14, 1945, Japan surrendered unconditionally, effectively ending World War II. Since then, both August 14th and 15th have been known as VJ Day. To commemorate this occasion, VFW Post 4289 and the Vietnam Veterans of America invite you to their VJ Day poker run. The ride will honor our World War II veterans and benefit the local chapter of the Military Order of the Purple Heart. The ride begins at 10 a.m. on August 13th. To register, give them a call, 863-293-7469.
Welcome back to today's Veteran. I'm your host, Brian Lacey, and in the first segment, we're introduced to Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Kirby, who's the Vice President of Operations here at Drokken International. Now, I want to introduce you to two guys who work behind the scenes and kind of make things work here at Drokken International. Joining us is Ronnie Bryant and Sean Jervis. Guys, how you doing today?
Fantastic. Doing great.
Well, got to talk a little bit before the interview. Sean, talk to me a little bit about your service to the military right now.
I'm coming up on 20 years as enlisted. I'm a Master Sergeant right now, as is Ronnie. We're both stationed down at Homestead as traditional reservists. I did active duty prior to that. And it's been great. I'm weapons supervisor down there, so I basically oversee all the operations on the flight line for weapons. So anything in regards to bombs, missiles, ammunition, basically just making sure that everything releases the way that it's supposed to on the aircraft.
Ronnie, how about you? How'd you join the company? By company, I mean Air Force.
I joined the Air Force about 15 years ago, did 6 years active, 9 years reserve. I'm a Master Sergeant down at Homestead, like Sean said, and I'm the avionics flight chief down there.
Now, for folks that might not know exactly what you do, not so much in layman's terms, but tell us a little bit about what you do military-wise and then how it works here.
Sure. For me, for weapons, Ronnie's avionics and I'm weapons, we basically have to make sure that everything that involves the weapons system on an aircraft, for Homestead, it's F-16s, so that everything works the way it's supposed to. So when the pilot presses the button and he wants to drop a bomb, that it happens when it's supposed to, how it's supposed to, and where it's supposed to. And that includes everything on the aircraft that could potentially be released as a weapons, on the weapons platform. So.
Now, Ronnie, from your side of the house, what's that mean?
For me, it's very similar. I work regular flight control systems and air data and that kind of thing, and also fire control, which is pretty much all your weapons delivery, your radar systems, your electronic inventories, that kind of stuff, all your computers for flight and for weapons delivery. That's what I work in the Air Force, which is the exact same thing I do here. In fact, one of our aircraft has a older model F-16 radar in it, and it was really easy for me to step from F-16 radar to working an A4K radar.
Now, something that Ronnie mentioned, you guys are used to working one platform of airplanes, of which the Air Force is flying now, but as the aggressor working for Drokken, you guys are working a totally different, you guys are using the A4s. Talk to me a little bit about, when we were talking to Jeff, he was talking a little bit about how you guys were really given a blank canvas and the ability to create. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, just from a standpoint of the startup, which is what our company is, we had to start up the weapons program. So from the very beginning, when he referenced blank canvas, that was literally, I had to figure out how to develop a weapons program that I could adapt across multiple different providers. So it's derivative from the Air Force with some Navy kind of influence, and then I had to apply a business standpoint to it as well, because this is a much smaller organization. We don't have the resources that the Air Force has. So it's primarily focused on safety and best practices for the most part.
Ronnie, what about you? You're starting this the same way.
For me, it's allowed me to grow. I mean, I spent 15 years in the Air Force, and I've worked primarily two platforms, an F-16 and a Predator. I get to come here and I learn an A4K using Navy pubs, and I get to work Italian-made Mach-E trainers using Air Force style pubs, and now the L-159. So learning small nuances about the different aircraft has actually allowed me to grow as a technician. And then on top of that, because we have such a small footprint, we've come here as APG or as weapons or as avionics, and we learn from each other. And we're not just learning from some new kid off the street, some 4-year senior airman. We're learning from a 20-year master craftsman at his trade. So, I mean, we really have to lean on each other and each other's experiences, especially with as many platforms as we have.
That's definitely one of the biggest pros to what we do here, is that we have a great deal of experience combined. We have a few kind of new to the fighter world team members, but for the most part, we've got folks that have been doing this a really long time. So when there's a judgment call or we get stuck in a bind where we're trying to figure out a problem and troubleshoot, with all those powers combined, we can usually get through it pretty quickly.
One of the things that you said, judgment call, the hardest thing about leaving the military and transitioning to life after the military is you always have this line. It's either black or white. It's not gray.
Sure.
And one of the things that you guys are lucky enough that you're following a military tradition and military leadership. Talk to me a little bit about making that transition.
Sure. For me, it was a little easier because when I left active duty after 6 years, I worked in the civilian world for about 10. I was a manager at Target for 6 years. I also did restaurant management for about 5 years. So I had already kind of been exposed to that kind of other world we spoke about. But for this, it's different because you get that sense of patriotism, and it's really great for me because it's kind of a really exciting, creative way to expand our capacity to serve our country.
How about you, Ron?
I actually left active duty, and I almost, pretty close to getting out of active duty, I became an ART down at Homestead, an Air Reserve technician, so I was a full-time federal employee, which was tied to my reserve position, so I was wearing the uniform 5 days a week, just like normal. So it really, I haven't felt much of a transition. We have the same camaraderie here. We have the same, just feeling vibe here that I had in the military. It's a very team-oriented task. We'll do with 5 to 10 people what it'll take military to do with 40 or 60, and it's very team-oriented because you really rely on each other so much here. So,
if you could give advice to anyone making that transition out of the military and into civilian world, since you guys have already done it, what advice would you give to those making that?
Well, 2 words immediately come to mind: resilient and adaptable, without question. It's not going to be like the military. You may find jobs that have kind of the same discipline, but at the end of the day, the core roles that you developed while you're in the military are always going to apply, and you have to self-govern. You may get into situations at different organizations where that line is not drawn exactly where it was prior while you're in your service. So it's just being very resilient, getting exposure, and being patient as well. It's really important.
How about you, Ronnie? What'd you?
For me, the biggest part of transition was the unknown. And at some point, you just have to say, this is what I want to do. And you have to be very clear with yourself with what you want to do and jump in with both feet.
I was going to say, one other thing I would mention that helped me a great deal was always having a mentor throughout my career, whether it was at retail or in restaurants, also in the military and the Air Force. Having that person you could go to for feedback and to kind of help you through the process.
I like to say, usually when you jump out of the military, it's usually a rough landing. But you guys have transitioned into a brand new facility. You guys are writing the rules. You're in Central Florida. Talk to me a little bit about where you've landed and where it's put you right now, and what you both see for the future.
Yeah, for me, kind of like I touched on earlier, it just comes down to this. This is a really creative, interesting, and exciting way to expand my capacity for serving the country. And I think the most exciting part comes from a lot of what we do is new, and we're really breaking into a market that we have high hopes for having a big market share, and that's just exciting, something new, and really the possibilities are endless. Especially there's been lots of budget cuts over the past several years, so that market's only going to grow.
How about you, Ron?
I was excited to find out this place existed. I was looking through just job listings, and to find out that they needed someone who knew fighter avionics in Central Florida, I instantly bid on it. But my goal was to come back here, and I grew up here. I grew up not too far down the road, and to find this opportunity here and to still be able to work fighter aircraft, it's sports cars versus school buses, and get to come home and work fighters in my backyard, and just for me, it's still exciting. It's an opportunity. It's just cooler than working on 737s.
It is pretty neat to be able to tell people, hey, what do you do?
I was going to ask you that. I mean, how does
like,
that come up in conversation?
Yeah.
Say you're out, somewhere downtown Lakeland, and somebody says, what do you do? And you go,
Yeah, there were a couple articles that came out over the past 18 months that called us mercenaries. So that's kind of a fun term to throw around. You got a lot tied to it. But for us, it's just, I work on fighter jets. Wait, so you're still in the military? I am, but I also work on fighter jets privately. Wait, what? So it's a lot of questions. And once you explain and connect all the dots, it's really great to see the light bulb go off. People get excited about it.
Talk about working for Drokken. What's that mean? What's that mean to you?
It's made me a better technician. It's really expanded my ability. I'm asked to do stuff and work with engineers on finding solutions to stuff that I never would have done in the Air Force. It's really allowed me to grow professionally. It's exciting. It's being part of a team. We have a ridiculously small footprint at times, but we all seem to work so well together and make stuff happen that as we're starting out a project, we're like, there's no way we're going to get this done. And every time we find a way, and everyone contributes to the best of their ability, and it's really great.
Well, guys, as a veteran, I thank you for your service to this great nation, and I thank you for carrying on what you're doing right now, and thank you for everything that you've done. For more information on Drokken International, you can check them out on the web at www.drockenintl.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Today's Veteran. I want to thank our guests, Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Kirby, Ronnie Bryant, and Sean Jervis. And I want to thank Drokken for being such gracious hosts and sharing the facility with us. But most of all, I want to thank you for joining us at home. Remember, for help and information regarding claims and services for veterans and their families, call the Polk County Veterans Affairs Office at 863-534-5220 or look them up on the web at www.polk-county.net. I'm Brian Lacey, sitting in for Tim Kirkhart, and we'll see you next month.